Hi, it's Steve Hargadon, and welcome to the penultimate hour of the Future Museums Conference. This has been a really fun day. I hope that those of you who are here have been enjoying yourselves. Joe Rigby is here. Joe, welcome.
Thank you. Yes, Steve, thank you.
Delighted to have you here. Big thanks to NMC.org, the New Media Consortium, and the Center for the Future of Museums, our partners for this inaugural event, and to Alex Freeman and to Elizabeth Merritt as co-chairs from those respective organizations. This is a learningrevolution.com project. We try and hold events on the learning professions. For those in the learning professions, we have a Future of Libraries conference held every October, a school leadership summit in the spring of each year. We have a homeschool conference coming up in August. Really a lot of fun. Over 100,000 attendees each year, so we hope you'll join us for some other events. This is a chance for those of you in the live session to indicate where you're participating from. Most of you probably know the drill by now, but look for the star to the left of the map. Click on it. The icons will open up. You can choose star or smiley face, whatever you'd like to place it on the map. And put in the chat, if you would, where you're participating from, any other information you think we might find fun to know. We've had this consistent, lovely international triangle of Canada, Western Europe, and Slovenia, I think, which has been fun today. Oh, Serbia. Terrific. Okay, please keep those locations coming in the chat. I'm going to move the slide forward. And Joe, the time is yours.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you so much for coming to show some interest in this presentation. What we're trying to do here is to really get across the fact that it is possible now to take 3D models, realistic 3D digitized models, and insert them into virtual museums which are on a multi-participant platform. So that means a platform where you will be able to click on a URL link, and that link will take you into a 3D environment, provide you with an avatar which you can use to walk around the museum with other participants in their avatar form, and actually look at the exhibits. And there will be the possibility, or we can do this, where you have the metadata, all the information that's valuable on the model, so you can actually get the educational value from it. So what I'd like to do is give you a little history of the technology, how far the technology has now come, and hopefully you'll all actually try the technology, click on the link, enter the virtual museum, and be able to wander around together as a guided tour showing you what's possible right now with this technology. Now, I have to apologize. The technology only works for PC and Mac with the Safari browser. So I have to apologize to the people who are on tablets or on their phones. Right now, this technology is limited to basically Windows and Mac. So about, I'd say, 7 years ago, one of the founders that we've been working with actually did an architectural degree in Ryerson University in Toronto. And for his final year thesis, he decided to use some of the technology or some of the techniques he'd learned in one of the courses using an Unreal 2 gaming engine. It was part of the architectural course, and he decided for his final year thesis to develop his entire portfolio for his final year thesis and enter it into a virtual environment. so that he didn't turn up for his final exam with a roll of papers and sketches and CAD drawings. He incorporated every one of them into a 3D environment, and then on a computer, on a presentation screen, he walked around it and presented it. So you can see it. He actually put this into a 3-floor museum-type environment, which he could walk and fly around. And he put all copies of all his drawings, his CAD drawings, his sketches, his concepts, and he actually did a 3D model of the final building that he had to construct. Now, all 3D digitized models are made of vertex and polygons. And the trick really is that with more polygons and with photorealistic textures, you can make replicas that you can then put into 3D worlds. So we started probably about 5-6 years ago taking various models that you could pick up off the internet. We got models of the Colosseum, and this is actually the Arch of Titus from Rome, and we started experimenting on bringing them into virtual spaces that we could join together as a group to wander around. Now, this was based on the Unreal 2 engine, gaming engine. So it was still quite complicated to be able to download the game, connect together over a network, and actually enter the environment and walk around as a group. It was still quite difficult, in fact, to get hold of the models and the final maps, as they call them, and then coordinate them amongst individuals. But at least we figured out that it was possible to take very complex models, and this is actually the Theatre of Pompey, which was generated and made over a year. I think it was almost 18 months of exhaustive design work using Studio Max, 3D Studio Max. They made a copy of the reconstructed Theatre of Pompey, and this was done at the Visualization Lab in King's College in London. And we worked with them, and they sent us their information, and we actually did a paper on this. So what we ended up trying to do was develop a technique where you could get actual industrial drawings now. So you get hold of very, very dimensionally accurate designs of furnaces, which were put together for copper refining in this case. And we took the 2D CAD drawings, developed them into meshes using AutoCAD and 3D Studio Max, and then brought them into environments. So the unique property here was that these vessels, these refining industrial vessels, were made perfectly to scale. So this would be perfectly exactly the same size as the real life. So it could be shown to customers to get a better grasp of the details needed for actually constructing these furnaces. Well, obviously this was accepted as being quite a dry application in some ways. So we were then asked to start developing certain types of simple museum. Oh, sorry. This is the inside of the vessel complete. But what was really exciting about this whole design phase was that at exactly the same time that we were trying to develop this transfer from 2D CAD drawings to 3D CAD models, which you could go inside and replicate in the actual scale of the real thing. The really exciting thing happened that Nortel, who was then taken over by Avaya, had developed a platform. It was a unified communications platform which embedded the Unreal Engine into the web, which made it possible now that you could just simply click one URL. That URL would download the game engine plugin. It would download the data for the 3D environment, and you would appear in there as an avatar. So just as we finished the the furnace design and managed to develop the technology to make 2D drawings into 3D objects in a virtual environment, Noa Telenovaya came along and allowed us to have it so that you could then embed this 3D environment onto the web. You would click the URL, and now you could walk up and down here with anybody in the world that had an internet connection and could just click the URL and appear inside this vessel. So as soon as we did this, we started contemplating the idea of making more complex, more realistic, more popularly attractive environments. And here you can see one of the design phases using the development kit, where we imported the Titanic into an environment. It's a 5th scale replica, and now you could walk around a museum type environment and look at various forms of modeling, and this pushed the envelope of the capability of this application simply by the fact that this Titanic was now 1 million polygons. So the models themselves can be brought into a virtual environment with very realistic detail, dimension-wise and on textures. And so we then moved on to the thought of making a dinosaur museum. In fact, this was based on a museum that was developed by the Carnegie Museum in Pittsburgh. I think it's, sorry, Carnegie Mellon Museum in Pittsburgh. They developed it for the Feathered Dinosaur exhibition, and it was available to download from the internet. So we actually downloaded the museum and started to try and import our own models of dinosaurs. So the whole point now was, yes, it's possible to bring in very complex, detailed models and pop them into a environment that you could then appear as an avatar and walk around. So a couple more shots of the dinosaur museum. Now, one of the most interesting things that came along pretty soon after this was that not only could we develop models using AutoCAD or 3D Studio or Max, but now it was possible to use commercially available laser scanning machines and photogrammetry. So what that basically means is you can get a piece of equipment right now, and it scans the object, it takes the actual texture, color, and exact dimensions, and brings that entire object into the computer as a finished 3D object. And not only that, there is software available now, which is called photogrammetry, where you could go and take maybe 20 pictures of an object from a different angle. And the software will stitch together a 3D model using those pictures. Now, you sometimes do have to go in and do some final polishing up and tweaking of the polygons to make it look really good. But the point really is that any object in any museum now can be laser scanned or can be photogrammetry. Using photogrammetry can be made into a 3D object, which is an entire exact copy of what the original exhibit was. So we quickly found out that there was a museum in England, in Lincoln, in the city of Lincoln. There's an art gallery called the Usher Gallery. And the Usher Gallery paid an artist technologist to spend a year scanning the sculptures that were in the gallery. And after they finished that, the grant money was then extended to make more and more of these statues. But on the website, it was possible to take the individual files and for us to bring them into a virtual museum. And the individual models were about 150, 180,000 polygons. So we definitely got a very reliable copy of the objects. But what really excited us was the fact that soon after this, a gentleman called Cosmo Wenman, who spends a lot of his time doing photogrammetry of copies of statues from the Louvre actually managed to take, oh, this is another one of Mars from Lincoln Gallery, and but this one, it's a copy of a statue called the Winged Victory of Samothrace, or Nike, and the original is in the Louvre, and there's a couple of very good copies in the rest of Europe. And one is in the sculpture Halle in Basel, Switzerland. And in fact, Cosmo Wenman copied this one and broke it down into 20 million polygons. So we were able to download this off a website called Thingiverse, which is a website now run by the MakerBot company, because what they're trying to promote is the idea that you can take these models and print them with your 3D printer. So what we're trying to do is say, well, with the type of application we have, we can make a very realistic copy of this as a digital 3D model and import it into the virtual platform where you can meet with people. So you can take parties of 6, 7, 10 people and actually walk around these models, exact replicas of the real thing. And this is in our virtual museum right now, along with the Aphrodite of Milos, or Venus de Milo, which again is a classical Hellenic Greek statue or sculpture from, maybe that one's, I think this is like 300 BC, whereas the Aphrodite is maybe 180 BC. It was interesting. I was looking at the sculptures on the friezes in the Parthenon, and they're all very, very similar to these. Anyway, the real crux of this whole presentation is to say that you can see the phenomenal quality of the reproduction of the virtual model, of the model in the virtual world, and it's just a situation where you really can't appreciate it unless you actually go in there and try it yourself. So what we have right now is the possibility that if you type in this URL and click on it, you'll be able to go inside the virtual museum and walk around in there. As I said, I must apologize. It only runs for PC and Mac, and only on the Mac with the Safari browser. But if you wouldn't mind, I'd really appreciate it if you could just try and hit the link at the bottom of the chat page there. And that would take us in there, we could spend maybe 15, 20 minutes, and I could show you some of the models we brought in from the Smithsonian, as again from the Louvre, and from the Lincoln Gallery. That's it, Steve, really. Should we finish the presentation here and carry on inside the virtual world?
Yes. So we're going to actually turn the recording off in this room at this point.
Okay.
We'll have people join us in the virtual.
Thank you. I hope most of you can make it, but as I said, it's certainly not possible if you're on a tablet. I'll see you there. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to present.
Yeah. There's nobody currently in the room who is on a tablet. I can tell that. But
okay,
hopefully there's nobody on a Linux machine. But if you're in a
that's true.
Windows or a Mac, I think we're going to be okay. So we'll turn the session off in here, and we will not come back to this room.
Take care. Thank you.
Finish in the library. But you can click on the link in the chat to get there, and I'll leave this up for the time.
Thank you again, Steve. Thanks.